Still waiting for a big smile out of you. You're up 2-0. What's the story? Are you not happy, or you're only half happy, or?
Still to be happy about.
You're up 2-0.
Job's not finished. Job finished? I don't think so.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Rick's Blazin Takes. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you here with me. I appreciate that. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Ladies and germs, without further ado, I am he is I am him. Rick Blaze, come and see another episode of Blazin Takes. And we're going to get right to it. On yesterday, I started breaking down the teams. I broke down 2 teams from the Legend, 2 teams from the Legacy. And I'm going to continue doing the same thing. I'm going down just the order of which they're already listed on the standings. So if your team's not first or second or last, I'm just going by the order, right? So the next team on my list on the Legacy Conference is SimWorld Atlantis. What did SimWorld Atlantis do well? Well, they had 3 guys who are a really, really, really talented group of guys. And they had what a lot of teams didn't have, and that was 3 bona fide scorers. In Blaine Kidd, Nathaniel Zilberman, who I didn't think got enough touches. That's a whole nother story. And Theopius, man, however, you know what I'm saying. 3 guys who could really put the ball in the basket. And on certain nights, Keontae Smythe would do some work. So that's what they strengths. They had 3 guys, 3 sneaky guys, because they wasn't the guys that people really talked about all season long. But you'll mess around and look up and have a loss. Matter of fact, my man Kidd started the season off with the first triple-double. So they had 3 guys who could score the ball really well. That gave them an advantage. Why they did not win, they wasn't deep in talent. They didn't have a lot of depth. Besides the 3 guys, again, Mickey Harden, I wanted to see more from him than what I did. And so I think he was a bit of a disappointment. The other guys, they didn't bring much to the table. I mean, they weren't even averaging 5 points a game. So they didn't have any depth. So those 3 guys, sometimes the 4th, had to have a really good game for them to win the ball game. So that's the bottom line. They just didn't have depth. So how would you beat SimWorld Atlantis? Easy. You just stop one of their 3 guys from scoring. From just going, you have one of the 3 guys have a decent game, or from a decent to bad game, and that you're gonna win. You stop one of the 3, any one of the 3. I don't care. You pick one. Close your eyes. You focus on one of them and say, hey, you're not gonna have a great game, and then the team is gonna lose. They need all 3 guys to do their thing. All right. Philadelphia Elite. I like this team. So what did they do well? What Philadelphia did, I think they will. I think Philadelphia was well coached. I want to say that first. I don't think every team is well coached. So I'm not gonna say well coached from every team. I don't think every team is well coached. I think some coaches actually did their team a disservice this year. But I think Philadelphia is a well coached team. They also had bona fide. They have bona fide superstars on their team. They have 2 for sure, Nas Hall and Jermaine Jones. I talk a lot about Nas. I'll talk even more so about Jermaine Jones. Even got into a spat some months ago behind him. So those 2 guys are bona fide ballers. That's what they got going for them. They got a good 2-headed monster with those guys, Nas Hall and Jermaine Jones. Why they didn't win? Simple. They have poor point guard play all season long. That's why they didn't win. Their point guard position, their defense was okay. Well, they were really good at 2 things. They had Nas Hall and Jermaine Owens, and they were also really good. The defense was okay, but they were really good. They have active hands, and they win the turnover battles. That's how they beat teams, with those 2 superstars and winning the turnover battle. Is how Philadelphia wins. What they were not good at, besides those 2, it was hit and miss. But they had really bad point guard play. Like the highest points per game. I'm sorry, the highest assists per game is 2.8. Bro, that's sad. Their point guard play, and then their best, and then Orlin Mock was a good guard defensively, but he didn't bring none in the offensive end. So they had poor point guard play all season long. I think if they have decent to good point guard play, they probably make the race to one this past season. I'm almost sure of it. They missed about 2 games. If they had better point guard play, they probably make the race to one. So, how do you beat this team? Easy. Let me not say easy. You limit their turnovers. First thing, you limit their turnover. If you win the turnover margin against this team, more often than not, you're going to win the game. They have to turn you over. They were top 5 in steals and taking possessions and forcing turnovers. If you win a turnover margin against Philadelphia, unless Nas Hall goes stupid, dumb, crazy, like a 30, 40-point night, if you win a turnover battle, more often than not, you're going to beat this team because they're going to they depend on turning you over as part of their defensive assignment and part of their defensive identity. All right, so there's 2 on the legacy. Let me go to the legend side. Here we go. Now, this is all part of my free game series. So this will be, I guess, this show will be titled Free Game Part 2. I'm moving the mic, so the mic gonna start making some noises. So we started my free game series on yesterday. So part 2 was today. So I did my 2 teams for the legacy. Now I'm gonna do 2 teams for legend. Again, I'm just going in order. I stopped at Showtime yesterday, so today I'm gonna do Bay Area and Asia Pacific. I kind of hit on Bay Area in the thread the other day. Actually, that's what gave me the idea to kind of talk about all the teams, good, bad, and whatever, based on the Bay Area situation. So I'm gonna go over it again slightly for those who might have missed that thread. Bay Area breaks. Where were they good at? They had a dominant big. They had a bunch of all-stars on their team. They had a lot of potential all-stars on their team. They probably had the most potential all-stars than any other squad in SimWorld. They also was pretty fast as a team. They had good team speed. They had bona fide bucket getters. They had about 4 or 5 bona fide bucket getters who can get their own shots, and they was pretty quick as a team. All right, where did they struggle? I said in the thread, they struggle with offensive identity. They have a guy in Trey Hyman who has the ability to be a bona fide, legit baller and dominant big, but their team was best suited to run. They're more often than not, they win in games that they're running. That's why in the close games, they couldn't win the close games. Why? Because the logic that Bay Area used was, we're going to give it to our best player in the close games, which is Trey Hyman. Well, that's not how they play best as a team with the team that they had. They run is their best. Whenever they throwing the ball inside, their winning percentages chances drop the more touches Trey gets in that, because that's not what was best for the team. They had a bunch of ball dominant guys on the wing and in the guard position who has to shoot the ball to get a rhythm. They have to run the court, and that's not. So you had 2 things going on. You had the coach who wanted to feed their best player, and a team that was built to play a different style of basketball. And this part here I'm about to go over now has nothing to do with Bay Area. This is just my little rant for the coaches. This is what you do, coaches. You have to know yourself. You can come into the offseason all you want and know what kind of team you want to have, but sometimes maybe you didn't have the offseason that you thought you was going to get. Maybe you didn't get those players you thought you was going to get. Don't be foolish and then try to still run that same ragged-ass offense with the players that you have when you know you didn't get the right players to run an offense. You have to adjust. You have to be the coach. You have to make an adjustment, and you have to do something different based on the talent that you have. Or maybe you did get the players that you wanted, but maybe those players just not playing up to what you thought they was going to play up to. You need to adjust. Don't throw that old rag, that same low 1-step, 2-step out there and get embarrassed. You be looking at the players like they didn't do nothing. No, I'm calling you out, coach. It was y'all. And again, this is not about Bay Area. I'm talking about coaches in general at this point. I'm talking about y'all. You need to make adjustments. You need to understand the talent that you accumulated, and you need to set your philosophies around that talent on both the offense and defensive end. Be real with yourself, especially if you want the players to be real with you. All right. Now, the other team is APAC. This is a tough team to call. I'll be honest with you. This is a tough team to call because they got better. They got considerably better as the year went along. So the deficiencies I saw in them in the beginning of the season, I didn't see those same deficiencies towards the end of the season and doing a race to one tournament. Real quick, one last point about Bay Area before I move on. I often said in most games, Bay Area beat themselves more times than an opponent actually beat them. All right, because of the style that they was playing, didn't really mesh with the team. All right, back to APAC. I spent a lot of time going back and forth with APAC. I think the way they played in the race to one, they have very few flaws in their game. The only flaw, their biggest flaw by the end of the, now if I was talking about the APAC in the beginning of the season, that's a different team. I'm only going to talk about the last team I saw on the court. Now, the biggest flaw that they had is something they have no blame to take for themselves. They got to blame their mom, their dad, their genetics. It is what it is. They didn't have primetime athletes, meaning they're not going to run you out the gym. They're not, for the most part, going to jump over you. They're not the quickest. They're not the fastest. And so in a league like SimWorld, if you have a team of players like that, that can be a disadvantage. Now, what they made up for was that they have very smart IQs in the game of basketball. They knew where to be on their spots at all times. They knew how to set the back screens. They knew how to set the pick and pops. They knew when to take the right shot. They never really took bad shots. They knew when to roll. They was very smart offensively and defensively with their and you have to be smart. When you don't have the athleticism, you got a disadvantage. You need to be smart enough to be where you're supposed to be because you don't have the athleticism to make up for it if you're not there, right? So the advantage that they had was they were smarter than most teams IQ-wise. And they had 3 bona fide shooters. Again, to have 3 scores on your team is not a luxury that every team has. They had 3 scores on their team. Now, those guys mostly did their job from the perimeter, which means if their shots were off, it was going to be a long night for APAC because they didn't have any inside. George stepped up later on in the season, but those 3 guys from the perimeter was their dogs, right? So that's also that disadvantage. If you're a shooting team and you got to rely on the perimeter as much as APAC did for most of the season, that means when you have a bad shooting night or one of your guys have a bad shooting night, it's going to be tough for you to win, right? And so how to beat them? Oh, man. At the end of the season, it was really tough. You had to run your game plan perfectly. The APAC team I saw at the end of the year, I'll say almost end of the school year, at the end of the season, you had to run your game plan pretty damn well because they were going to run their game plan. So even in games where they didn't have the best game plan, they never wavered from it. So once you started wavering from it, you're going to lose because they're going to stick to the script. They're going to be the same team for 4 straight quarters. It's very difficult to maintain that type of intensity, that type of focus for 4 straight quarters, but that's what APAC did. That's why even when their shooters struggled, they was always in the game because they was going to be the same team in quarter 1 that they was going to be in quarter 4. And regardless who came out on the court, everybody played the same way. Most teams don't play that way. So the APAC I saw at the end of the season was a very dangerous team. You take me a best out of 3, APAC versus anybody in SimWorld, I think APAC takes most of those teams out in the best of 3 series. Best of 3. I mean, the first team to win 2 games out of the 3, I take APAC against most teams. That's how good they were at the end of the season. All right. Those are my 2 from the other side. So, I'm going to keep this series going. Again, this is the free game series. I'm going to get into the recruits in a little bit once I wrap up with these teams. Hey, man, it's Wednesday. Y'all enjoy yourself. I see y'all on the other side. Peace. Wait, before I go, I'm not going to rewind. I do everything live. Hey, put your comments in the chat. What do you think about the teams I said? Do you think I'm right? You think I'm wrong? You have your opinion about it? Put that in the chat. Let's talk about it. Let's cuss and discuss. All right, now I'm out. Damn, my bad.